Just having the peace of mind to be able to get yourself out of a stuck situation when you're out venturing in the wild by yourself is well worth the hassle and cost of installing a winch. But do you actually even need one? Hey, what's up guys? Josh from TrailBuilt. Some of us never even questioned the thought of not installing a winch on our vehicle. It was just one of those required items to have if you're gonna be hitting the trails, like a first aid kit, or a spare tire, or fire extinguisher, a cell phone, a high lift jack, or tools in case something breaks. Being prepared to hit the trails really can be a life and death endeavor. And if you're not prepared, well, then you could be setting yourself up for failure. But then there are many others who do question the necessity of having a winch and may even deem it impractical for their own vehicle use circumstances. That doesn't mean there shouldn't be some sort of recovery system in the vehicle, just in case of a predicament where a winch would have come in handy. For example, a high lift jack and a tow strap can be used to get you out of a tricky situation, or even to move large debris off the trail. So then the real question is, how do I know if I even need a winch or not? And if not a winch, what else could I use besides a high lift jack and a tow strap? Here's the thing guys, it's not really a one size fits all answer to this question. Some vehicles don't even offer aftermarket support to be able to install a winch on it. Or maybe the majority of your travel is on the pavement with the occasional trip on dirt or gravel roads. If this sounds a lot like your situation and you'd still like to be prepared for the rare occasion that you might have to get yourself out of a jam, or maybe come across someone else that has gotten themselves in a predicament, or even, like I'd mentioned earlier, maybe it's just to move some heavy objects out of the way, then a few good recovery tools to carry along with you can go a long way in getting yourself unstuck. Number one, a come along, or also known as a hand-powered ratcheting winch. They use a cable wrapped around a drum that's attached to a hand lever, and on the base of the unit is one hook that gets attached to one anchor point, and on the end of the cable is another pulley with a hook, and that gets attached to the other anchor point, whether it's your vehicle or a tree or some other object that isn't going to move. Then as you crank on the lever, it acts just like an electric winch, except instead of using electricity, you're using good old-fashioned manual labor. With this type of recovery system, it's good to carry along with you a couple of D-ring shackles, a smaller 8 to 10 foot recovery strap that can be used to wrap around a tree, also known as a tree saver. It can also be really helpful to bring along with you is what's called a snatch block, which is just a weird name in the rigging industry for a pulley. And if you really want to feel prepared, throw in an additional 100 feet of synthetic rope to use in conjunction with the snatch block and come along in order to multiply your energy into pulling force, basically doubling the amount of pulling power. Or if you get one like the one that Northern Tool has called the Strongway 4-ton heavy-duty double gear hand cable puller for 60 bucks, it already comes with the snatch block pulley attached to it, eliminating the need to purchase an extra snatch block. It does take a little more work and time to use a come along, plus they typically aren't rated to the weight pulling capacities of what a regular winch is. Although chances are that if you're not doing any aggressive off-roading, then you're probably not going to need as much pulling power anyways to get yourself unstuck. And another popular recovery option is carrying along with you a set of traction boards. They're relatively inexpensive and lightweight compared to installing a winch, and they can really come in handy if any of the terrains that you plan on traveling over might be sand or mud or some kind of loose debris like that. Or even if you're in a region that gets a decent amount of snowfall. Plus, they're pretty quick and easy to use. Just throw them under your tires, and most times they'll provide enough flotation and traction to get your vehicle moving again. Sometimes you may need to dig out the loose stuff, the mud, sand, snow, whatever, before you're able to properly place the traction boards far enough under or up against the bottom of your tires for them to get enough grip on the boards. Some adventurers will even have several sets of traction boards to keep throwing in front of the tires to prevent the tires from going right back into the mud or sand or snow, or whatever the situation might be. We've even used them to help us get a Ram Power Wagon out of a very stuck situation, although we're using the traction boards in conjunction with a winch. But even so, they still provided the much needed additional traction and really helped us prevent the Power Wagon from sinking even further back into the mud. Personally, I haven't had any experience with using the expensive ones like Max Trax, but I have heard that they work really well and are virtually indestructible. But I have used the rough country traction boards before on several different occasions, and for 150 bucks have worked pretty well for getting unstuck. But regardless of the brand that you end up going with, they really do come in handy for getting yourself unstuck. And another traction aid that is a lot more popular in the northern climates are tire chains. These devices have been proven to work great on icy or hard-packed snow-covered roads. In fact, there are provinces in Canada that, by law, require you to run them in certain months out of the year. Tire chains are a bit of a pain in the ass to use, and if they come undone, they can cause some unwanted damage to your fenders. They are also a proactive traction device, meaning that you'll want to have them installed before hitting the mud or sand, snow, hill, ice, whatever, or anywhere where you think you're going to lose traction. Trying to install them when you're already stuck is going to make life extremely difficult, if not impossible at that time. And another similar traction device to tire chains are what are known as tire straps. These you don't necessarily have to be as proactive with as tire chains because they're designed to be able to be installed if the tire is half buried. The strap has a large chunk of rubber fixed to it and gets installed so that it acts sort of like a paddle. The strap can be ran around the tire through one of the spokes in the wheel and then attached back to itself instead of trying to wrap the entire thing around the whole tire, which doesn't work that well when half the tire is buried. Pricing on tire chains can vary all over the place depending on the size that you need for your particular application, but the tire straps from Track Grabber ran for 98 bucks for a set of 4. There's other types of tire straps out there as well, but I've never actually used any of them myself, so I can't say which ones work good and which ones don't. And similar to a come along or hand-powered ratchet winch is one that I really don't recommend unless you're in a bind and a high lift jack is the only thing you have to get you out. I don't say that because they don't work, but because they're such a pain in the ass to use. In fact, it can be more of a pain in the face to use because the handle will sometimes come springing back towards you if you don't have the locking mechanism all the way engaged on every pull of the handle. But similar to using a come along, you have one end of the high lift anchored to your vehicle and the other end attached to an anchor point, and then you just cycle the handle over and over again so that the high lift pulls towards you instead of away from you, like as if you were jacking up a car. Using a high lift will also require you to have a couple of recovery straps along with you to attach to each end of the jack, one strap going to the vehicle and the other to an anchor point. But in a pinch, a high lift can be a lifesaver, but it can also cause a preemptive trip to the holiest of holy ones, so just be very careful when using one. So then, where is the turning point where it's not so much a question of if you need a winch, but a question of when, as in when should you install a winch on your four-wheel drive vehicle? Now, let me say this, guys, personally, I'm pro winch and not ashamed to admit it, but I am going to try to do my best to present this in a more diplomatic, unbiased approach as best as possible. See, the thing is, I view having a winch as an essential upgrade to just about any four-wheel drive vehicle where there's at least some intent of using your vehicle to hit the backcountry trails, especially if your plans are to go alone. Now, there are definitely some negatives to having a winch, like they're heavy. Even with synthetic rope, you still have the weight of the winch, the mounting plate, the bumper, and all of that will add additional stress to your suspension and driveline components, increasing the wear and tear and, in most cases, having to replace parts more often. But if your vehicle is going to see any type of off-road use, then that's to be expected anyways. Another disadvantage is having to run the power wires properly with a disconnect switch and then having to be cognizant of the amperage draw so that you don't burn up your winch or the wires or the battery or even your vehicle. So besides that, if the first thing stopping you from upgrading your vehicle with a winch is the lack of aftermarket support for mounting a winch onto your vehicle, well, then I can completely understand that, but there are some options out there for a receiver hitch mounted winch that just slides into your receiver hitch, but that can get a little impractical to store somewhere until you need to use it. But chances are, if there isn't an aftermarket upgrade for your vehicle to be able to mount a winch to it, then you're probably not using that vehicle for much more than dirt and gravel roads anyways. However, if it has a receiver hitch, then at least you know you have options there to install a winch. If it's not the lack of aftermarket support holding you back from installing a winch, well, then the next bottleneck is probably going to be the cost. And I get it, winches can be expensive, and not just because of the winch itself, but then you have to modify your vehicle, whether it's a new bumper or installing a winch mounting plate of some sort and getting it to work with your vehicle. If you have to pay someone to do it, well, then costs can add up pretty quick. And this is where getting a little bit creative can definitely make installing a winch a lot more affordable. For example, if funds are tight, well, then definitely look into the rough country winches on our website at TrailBuilt. A 9,500 pound rough country winch with steel cable is only 400 bucks. Add a rough country winch mounting plate for 70 bucks, and for under $500, you have a pretty decent winch setup to get you out of some precarious situations, if you have the know-how to install it yourself. And chances are, if the money is tight, well, then you probably have learned how to be resourceful already, and installing a winch probably isn't a big deal. And guys, not trying to sound stereotypical there, but I've had to learn how to do plenty of things by myself because I sure as hell couldn't afford to pay anybody to do it for me. But even with purchasing an inexpensive winch, it'll at least get you by until you're ready to upgrade to the next level of winches. Heck, my first winch I got from Harbor Freight back in 2005, and I paid 300 bucks for it, including the mounting plate. And even though I had buyer's remorse for spending that much money at that time, it was one of the best upgrades I ever did. I simply just stuck a warn sticker on it that a buddy had given me, and nobody knew the difference anyways. That's a true story too, by the way. What if our vehicle does have plenty of aftermarket support for mounting a winch onto it, and we can afford the winch, the bumper, and even to get it installed if we wanted to? But what if I think I'm never going to use it, and I can spend that money on other things for my vehicle, like a suspension lift or a new set of tires? Besides, the new tires and the suspension lift should make it so that I won't even get stuck, right? Or maybe I'll take that money and I'll invest it in a set of front and rear lockers. Then I really won't need a winch because I'm never gonna get stuck. And guys, I'm not saying what you should or shouldn't do. After all, it's your vehicle and your choice to do with it what you will. But me personally, and because I do take a lot of solo trips or have had to run a winch line to extract a buddy unexpectedly, or I've even had to run a line to a roll cage to prevent a vehicle from rolling down a steep embankment. But as I said in the beginning of today's video, to me, having a winch is up there on the priority list of being one of the first few things to upgrade on your vehicle, and can be one of the best upgrades to have for all kinds of different situations that are completely unexpected, like pulling out fence posts or tree stumps, or pulling your buddy's dead rig up onto a trailer. And again, unless you have zero intentions of ever going anywhere other than dirt and gravel roads, I would do whatever is in your power to make sure you have a winch installed on your rig, because I would bet that you would be glad if you did. And if not, that's cool too. Just do your best to make sure you have some sort of recovery system along with you, in that the sometimes rare occasion where something completely unexpected happens, and then at least this way you won't have to call your buddy up, that's if you even have cell phone service, and ask them to come get you in the middle of nowhere to extract your vehicle out of some type of stuck situation that you probably shouldn't have been in the first place. That probably sounded a little harsh, but guys, if you've been wheeling for a while, well, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I know I sure learned the hard way, so try not to make the same mistakes I did, and have yourself a way to get out of a jam if you need to. One thing I am curious about though, guys, is for all of you that do hit the trails, how many of you are not running a winch on your vehicle, and what type of off-roading do you do? Is it for work, hunting, fishing, exploring, camping, or just for recreation? Plus, do you have any sort of self-recovery system that works well for you? And for those of you that do already have a winch installed, do you feel it was worth the investment? Would you ever go back to not running a winch on your vehicle? Would be great to hear back from all of you guys by letting us know in the comments below. And remember guys, to check out our rough country winches and even our worn winches, make sure and head on over to TrailBuilt Off-Road, or to make it easy, just click the link in the description below. But before you do, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all of our latest videos. And guys, as always, we appreciate all of you for watching and all of your support. I'm Josh from TrailBuilt, and we'll see you guys out on the trails.